equals 2. A plus B plus pi are: A is your short shoot, B are the long stretches, and R the radius of your corner. Now this mathematical equation means that the radius for each of the 4 corners is identical. So when we take the lengths of the back straights, they're 5/8 of a mile. The lengths of the short shoots are 1/8 of a mile. So when we add those all together, we get 12/8. A circle, a full circle with the 4 radiuses there, must, by that definition, be 8. So we get 20 divided by those corners must be exactly a 1/4 mile. My question for you both: if every corner is identical, and we know it must be because of the mathematical formula, how does every corner drive differently? How does every straight drive differently? And also another fascinating fact is if you block it up like this, that's 5/8, that's a 1/4, that's a 1/4, that's an 8, so that's 5/8, that's 5/8, and that's 5/8. That's neither here nor there. How guys, on this legendary rounded rectangle, every corner, the radius is identical, the length is identical, and yet each one drives differently. As a driver, how and why? Because I find that absolutely fascinating.
Mother Nature.
But that's the thing, we go to
winners here, the surface wears, and wind. So, despite the rigidity of morning math, Mother Nature can outpower all, and the wind is blowing maybe 5 miles an hour right now, and all 4 corners weather at a different level because of their sun exposure relative to their position north-south, east-west, moisture, etc. So I'm going to say Mother Nature can conquer all.
The other thing, I mean, we've got a great shot of it right now. You have grandstands and structures all the way around the racetrack, but not in even measurements, not in even proportions. You go through turn 1, nicely blocked by that vista in turn 1, but as you get towards turn 2, there's a break in the grandstands. There's one in the short shoot, which you're going to see right here to driver's right. There's a break. Wind can come through there. As you come through turn 2, there's a break at the end of the grandstands before we see the suites. That adds a tunnel effect of wind that can come through there as well. So between the way the track ages, the way the wind behaves differently in different corners, and how sensitive these cars are to even the slightest adjustment in anything, atmospheric, wind, temperature, whatever, you can get for identical corners on paper that drive very different.
You know, you threw me for a loop because when you announced morning math, I was like, God, I haven't done that since I lived in Palmdale.
Sebességeredmények mellett értékel.
It's 12:15.
Ezeket
It's early.
az eredményeket.
It's early afternoon, man.
Nyugodtan egyébként közben javítok. 2:26-32. Nem ez egyébként az elmúlt 3 nap, illetve az elmúlt 2 nap és a miért? Gyors.
That's such a great example at the balance and confidence that Newgarden has right now. Absolutely pinned in traffic through turn 4 with a great run. Now he looks to the high side of Kyle Kirkwood. Opts to back off, but this is a driver completely in sync with his car, exactly where he wants to be right now.
Sebesség eredményeket. Az első napon ugye Will Power volt a leggyorsabb 2:27-kal. Közben nézzük, hogy mi van az élő közvetítésen, ugyan az élő képen. De az is lehet, hogy csak elmentek a kintiek reklámozni. Minden bizonnyal egyébként ez történhetett, ugyanis nem beszél senki sem ugye az élő közvetítésben. Ugye addig gyorsan elmondom, szóval Will Power volt 227,26 ezred mérföld per órával, Joseph Newgarden volt a második 226,971 ezred mérföld per órával, Alex Palou pedig harmadik 226,673 ezred mérföld per órával. A második nap pedig annyiban változott, hogy Alex Palou volt a leggyorsabb 227,546 mérföld per órával, Will Power 225,584, tehát itt nagyjából 2 mérföld per óra volt a különbség, Joseph Newgarden pedig épp hogy elmaradt csapattársától 225,548 mérföld per órát ment. Ez az első három, nyilván itt Marcus Armstrong, Christian Rasmussen, Ryan Ray, őket is föl lehetne sorolni, én csak az első hármat emeltem ki. Aki egyébként változatlan volt, már hogy kik szerepeltek az első háromba, ugye Power, Newgarden és Palou, két Chevrolet és egy Honda. Nyilván a Penske-k eddig nem voltak a legeslegjobbak,
Indianapolis, feverish work going on the number 18 car of Rinus VeeKay.
Nem voltak ugye eddig,
not rare to see, mechanics working on a race car. A little rare to see a couple IndyCar officials there. We saw an AMR safety member walk by as well. Not sure exactly what it is that they're looking at on the right rear corner of Rinus VeeKay's machine, but clearly some interest from the officials on what's happening.
Sometimes this is because an official reported trackside, maybe some fluid, some smoke or something, as we take a closer look at either a tether. It looks like some of the foil that protects the suspension A-arm. So there might be two issues here. I've seen a flapping piece of foil that might have come off this forward A-arm. If you notice on the right-hand side, you'll see two pieces of heat protection foil covering the upper A-arm. So I think we might have two things. This and then also a sensor cable that looks to be loose or a tether. Could be a suspension tether.
I think it's a tether.
But it almost looks like it's got a data connection on the tip of it. Anyways, either way, good eyes out on the speedway from IndyCar officials to spot that, bring the car to pit lane, and have a closer look.
And IndyCar does have spotters standing trackside in all four corners to keep an eye on things just like that. Drivers will often communicate back to their crews if they notice an issue with another car. And then, of course, the spotters on top of the stands that are spotting for safety and in the racing scenarios can also sometimes see it. They've got binoculars a lot of the time, and they can get eyes on different parts of the car.
We just had a little look down in there.
What were you looking at?
I was looking at what I think was falling loose.
By the way, I've never worked with a play-by-play guy that ever had authority to use the telestrator like you've.
It's a new way, Townsend. It's a new
Why it's over on that side.
That's an analyst tool, okay?
Your tricep came across my chin like a...
Something wrong with Pelot. There's fluid all over the rear of the car.
That is not good.
Lehet.
If you had to hope for one kind of fluid, I think I would hope gearbox over engine fluid.
Nyilván, ha csak első szám állítás lenne, akkor az nagyon könnyen meg lehetne oldani.
Yeah, that is...
That looks like it's engine related.
So, a tricky start to the day for the man who was fastest yesterday and fastest overall for the 2 days of practice so far.
So we were speculating about Honda bringing motors for performance reasons, but maybe it's more of a reliability concern that has crept in because Scott Dixon already had the change. Same team with Chip Ganassi Racing, same Honda camp. So we'll have to keep an eye on that.
Now, one guy I was talking to over breakfast this morning who was really unhappy with how his week had run so far. Standing by with Georgia, Santino Ferrucci. How is he, Georgia?
Well, Santino Ferrucci in the car right now. He briefly got out, was very frustrated. And as we remember from yesterday when we talked to him, he was frustrated back then too. They were trying to find speed. He didn't feel comfortable. They made some extensive changes, went back out towards the end of the day yesterday, and still was not happy. Made some more changes than today, went out there, and as we see, he sits 27th on the board. He's turned 4 laps, came in, got out of the car, incredibly frustrated, and immediately got back in the car. So they are throwing everything at this 14 car right now to find speed.
Thank you, Georgia. Yeah, I spoke to Santino this morning, guys, and his exact words were, I can't turn in. I have no confidence in the car. The rear is too loose on entry. It starts to slide. I go to correct it, and just as I go to correct it in the mid-corner, the front suddenly engages, and then it wants to shoot me off into the wall. He tried to put on last year's setup of the car. It's made no difference. When I sat with him today, he said, I'm considering running David Malukas' setup on the car, which is completely the opposite of what I would normally like from a car. They're trying everything, and he can just find no comfort in that car at all. His exact words were, we're 2 days behind and $2 short.
So the question I have is, why in the world, with the Penske partnership, would you not just walk over to the garage of the 2-car of Joseph Newgarden, take the setup sheet, say thank you very much, hand it to your crew chief and say number for number, put exactly that on the race car.
I've talked to Santino Ferrucci about this exact thing before. When this partnership first started, I said, hey, so are you kind of adopting a lot of their setups and learning to drive those? He goes, on the road courses, street courses, yeah. On the ovals, no. I run my own program. I've got a car that I like to drive. I can't drive their cars at all. So he's on a little bit of an island. He's got a very aggressive style. We've seen it be very successful. In fact, I think there was some example. Oh, that won't be allowed. No, that's going to be called in immediately. You cannot have all 4 wheels go over that white line to driver's right. Santino knows that, but this guy's, the frustration is creeping in. The concern is creeping in. That's a rookie move from a veteran driver.
Yeah, let's take a look again at this apron rule. So you have... Is that Devlin DiFrancesco, who's waiting to catch the back of the group, and Santino passes him on the short chute, which is part of the racetrack. You could do that, but you cannot go 4 wheels over the white line right here. And does he?
Yeah.
Just. Maybe he was forced there. We'll see how race control treats that.
It's being kind, I think.
But listen, for Santino to catch the group, he's probably wondering, why is Devlin soft pedaling it out of the pits?
Devlin, I think, actually came in off the track and was cooling down. I think he took the after a qual sim.
Either way, Ferrucci coming to pit lane, and probably because race control, and now we hear officially, yes, indeed, it's a drive.
Letterman, Lanigan Racing, the number 15 machine, having some issues. Let's listen to some radio.
It should be easily fixed, but it's just something doesn't feel right. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. Like, I don't know, it's all good, but it's just the rear just flies.
Have heard this a lot, not only from Graham Rahal, but also Ryan Hunter-Reay told me this yesterday. Kind of a curveball that some of these veteran drivers and certainly teams with experience are just trying to figure out how to manage the extra mass at the back of the car with the hybrid. We're starting to see, guys, the separation of the goods and the greats right now. I think there's a lot of teams in trouble getting a handle on the back of their race car, and time is running out.
Yeah, I think with this extra weight that the hybrid brings, it has made it a little more complicated, especially in traffic or in low downforce qualifying sims. You know, when you have essentially just less downforce on the car to mask it, you only have so much front wing you can put in this car to get that aerodynamic front grip. You kind of have to use more of a mechanical free setup, turn the car more mechanically, I think, than you have in the past in order to be racy, because it's just a different deal than what we've got right now.
So we look at the number 15. One of the big stories to emerge in the first half hour of practice here is the fact that championship leader Alex Palou has had a major issue. Looked like an oil leak. Kevin's down in his garage. Kev, what can you tell us, mate?
So I would say the news is better. When you hear that Scott Dixon lost an engine at the end of yesterday, you see some grease, you start to fear, but they're just simply changing out the drive shaft boot. This is an area that retains the grease for the drive shaft, so nothing major. Engine is fine. This is a pretty quick fix. They will go ahead and assess some other things while they're back here as well, but no major issue for Alex Palou, and he'll be back on his way shortly.
Well, that will be relieving for Palou, his crew, and all of his fans.
It's one of those things that you hate to have happen, but you really are happy that it happened on Thursday. You know, not on Saturday when we're lining up for qualifying or during one of his qualifying attempts. It's these are still race cars. These are still pieces of machinery that are being stressed to the absolute limits, and things can still go wrong and things can break.
Well, and thankfully they find it before it happens mid-corner and dumps all that oil on the right rear. That could have been disastrous for Palou. A lot to play out, a lot going on in the first 30 minutes of practice, guys.
Busy first 30 here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. We'll be back.
Még a kintek reklámoznak, addig azt gondolom, hogy gyorsan egy kicsikét nézzünk bele Tony Kanánnak a ma délelőtti, hát helyi idő szerint mindenféleképpen délelőtti, hiszen ott még csak 12:32 van, ugye keleti parti idő szerint. Visszajöttek, úgyhogy akkor nem is a hang, úgyhogy addig semmiféleképpen nem fogunk átkapcsolni. Kicsikét elhalkult az előbb.
Welcome back to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway practice, well underway on a glorious Thursday here in Indiana. Delighted to say we have our first guest in the booth of what we hope is a full day of practice. Dennis Reinbardt's here, and thank you so much for joining us as we take a look at your man, Jack Hollywood Harvey, down there on pit road. How's practice been going so far for you guys?
It's been going pretty well. I like the Hollywood thing. I think that's going to stick. We're going to make sure that gets brought up in the engineering meeting later on today.
New sticker on the car, maybe.
Yeah, exactly, right?
Yeah.
We've been busy. I mean, there's a lot of changes. You guys are just talking about that. I heard earlier with the weight of the car and the hybrid system and trying to figure everything out and dial these cars in. It's been a lot more activity and busier and tougher, I think, to hit the window that we're going for this year than it has been in the past.
Dennis, your team runs just once a year. You guys work all year at this. It's not like everybody just shows up for the month of May. You've got full-time people, but you don't have an affiliation like Meyer Shank does with Chip Ganassi or AJ Foyt. We were just talking about their relationship with Team Penske. Does that make it even harder for you guys now in terms of getting the hybrid sorted out in a short period of time?
In certain ways, yes. In certain ways, no. We do a lot of testing, as you know, in the off season as much as we can. So we're free to do that at our own schedule. So that's a benefit. With the hybrid, I think everybody's in the same boat. I was really worried about that coming into this year because these guys had the road course knowledge that we don't have. But coming here, it's a whole different scenario. We were talking about this with the Chevy guys and the hybrid guys on when to deploy and when not to. And man, with qualified coming up this weekend, it's going to be hands full in the cockpit. I mean, you guys know what it's like. It's hard enough to go as fast as you can go and try to time things with weight jacker and shifting and not miss a gear. Now add that in each corner or however often we're going to deploy the thing. It's really a testy time for everybody. Everybody's on edge, I think, this year.
Now, we always talk about how much practice there is here.
Néha rájövök, hogy azért nem is olyan könnyű, gondolkozok én azon, jó, persze, például mondjuk csak egy ember legyen, mert azért az még úgy okés, már hogy olyan értelemben, hogy nyilván nem kell, akkor hogyha a csatorna nem szeretné sokkal több pénzt erre áldozni, akkor nyilván egy ember az még egészen okés, hogy plusz csak egy ember kommentálja az eseményeket. Kettő még, vagy kicsit több, nagyobb a büdzsé, akkor ugye a kettő abszolút az is okés. Dennis Rainbow ugye nyilván a Dreyer and Rainbow részének az egyik tulajdonosa. És pontosan ezért most is például rájöttem rá, hogy azért egyedül nagyon nehéz jó közvetítést csinálni. Mert hogy persze beszélsz, amiről éppen tudsz, most én, vagy beszélsz arról, hogy éppen ugye Kyle Kirkwood megelőzi Power-t, ami borzasztóan érdekes egyébként, mert nyilván tudjuk, hogy nem verseny, tehát hogy igazából csak nézzük az autókat a pályán, ilyenkor lehet ugye különböző témákat felhozni, bajnokság állása, kit tartunk a legjobb embereknek, stb. Vagy legjobb pilótáknak, kit néznénk meg más sportágakból, akár rallyból, hosszú távú versenyzésből, vagy más podcast is sorozatokból, szériákból. De akkor is egyébként nehéz egyedül, hiszen nyilván nem tudsz senkivel se reflektálni. Felhozol egy témát, de nem tudsz beszélni valakivel, megvitatni az álláspontodat. Nekem van egy, neki van egy, egyeztettük, elmegy az idő. Nyilván például, ha fordítani kell, akkor ott is segítség lehet, hogy éppen valamit nem értettél, mert közben beszéltél, fordítottad, vagy éppen amit kell ugye fordítani a interjút, vagy bármi, ami éppen a képernyőn van. és mellette akkor ő, nem tudom, leírt valamit, vagy bármi, vagy hogy ő közben a pályán látott valamit, és akkor arról fogunk majd, nem tudom, a következő 5-10 percben beszélni fogunk, közösen az a következő 5-10 percben beszélni, vagy éppen, hogy ilyenkor mit csinálnak egy adott, milyen tesztprogramok lehetnek, stb. És nehéz egyedül tényleg egy jó műsort csinálni, és az, hogy folyamatosan beszélj.
Something that appeals to different manufacturers so we could get more competition in the series and spread that out a little bit. The series has a lot of good growth going on, and to capitalize on that, I think is the main focus. The racing's great, so I think the formula they're putting together makes a lot of sense.
Idén már nem megy teljes szezon, hanem csak ide az Indianapolis 700 mérföldes versenyre, amit 3-as autó ült be. Tavaly ugye ő ült be Christian Rasmussen helyére, úgy indultak, úgy adott 3 autót, 33-ból az Ed Carpenter Racingből, ami idén már hivatalosan ICR. Az Ed Carpenter Racing úgy adott, miközben elment a kép, ezt majd mindjárt megnézzük. Na, már is visszajött, semmi probléma. Szóval ugye Rasmussen, mint pont a képen, Nyugárdán mögött szélárnyékoztatja meg magát, nézi, hogy például egy Penske mögött, majd a versenyen, ha úgy alakul, akkor hogy lehet menni, vagy Nyugárdán mögött. És
on paper, Dennis, if you went down the order, you would say, okay, Prema, brand new to IndyCar, late getting their cars ready, etc. And then candidly, I'd say, well, these guys are a one-off team. They don't have the technical partnership. Are you concerned at all at this point that, hey, you might be a last row situation?
Anything can happen here. I mean, it's just, it's such a special place that you can't take it for granted. Every day you drive in here knowing you have to change, you have to adapt, and whoever adapts and changes best is going to be in the best position. So you don't take it for granted. I feel good about ourselves where we're at, but you never know how that's going to play out. Anything can happen in qualifying. Like last year we had some issues. You know, you miss a weight jack or you miss a gear, and boom, your whole qualifying run is toast.
Speaking of mistakes and challenges, on Saturday we're looking at
az egész évet tekintve, illetve az év nagyobb részét tekintve, Christian Rasmussen volt ugye a 20-as autóban, az Indy 500-ra ő a 33-asba ment, Linus Ricky a 21-esbe, mert egész évben Ed Carpenter pedig erre a versenyre bent a 20-asba. Idén ugye már nem megy nem az a felállás, mint amit tavaly eredetileg lett volna, aztán az év végére tudjuk, hogy nem így lett, hogy Christian Rasmussen az oválokon nem megy, végül mégiscsak ment. Az Indy 500 volt az első versenye talán, IndyCar ovál versenye, és végül az egész, nem az egész évben, hanem néhány versenyen még Ed Carpenter ment, de egészen pontosan már mondom is, hogy melyik.
I didn't know that about him because, you know, we're just working with him for the first time this year, but he's
favorite exercise running down pit lane is classic. He has no chance to defend himself. It doesn't seem fair at all right now.
I love it. That does make it fun, doesn't it?
You know what I really admire about Jack was meeting his father Paul yesterday. I love the fact that he just plants a chair inside the garage and just watches over his son's car with exact detail. So father and son working strong together here at the Speedway. But we wish you all the best on this weekend and certainly next weekend. Great to get your insights.
I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Az 5. verseny volt a tavalyi évben, utána az Iowa-i dupla hétvégén ült be még, valamint Gateway, Worldwide Technology részvéjen megrendezett versenyen ült be még Christian Rasmussen helyére. A 20-as autóba, Milwaukee Mile-on, illetve Nashville Super Speedway-en viszont már Rasmussen vezette a 20-as autót. Szerintem egyébként nem rosszul, és nem feltétlenül volt rossz döntés az, hogy mégiscsak Rasmussen legyen, hiszen egyébként az első Milwaukee versenyen 11. lett, az majdnem top 10, a másodikon 16, Nashville-ben pedig 14, szerintem egész korrekt. Tehát például Ed Carpentert nézzük meg gyorsan. Az Iowa dupla hétvégén 20 és 22. lett, illetve 17. lett Gateway-en, ahogyan egyébként az Indy 500-on is, hogyha jól látom. Rasmussen egyébként hozzátéve az Indy 500-on 12. lett a tavalyi évben. Szóval nem ment rosszul, egyébként oválokon sem a tavalyi újonc, és hát tavaly, ha jól emlékszem, nem ő lett ugye az év újonca, hanem Kyle Larson, nyilván. Tulajdonképpen érthető okok miatt lett nem Joseph Newgarden, hanem Kyle Larson, igen, ő volt ugye az év újonca. Egyébként
Saturday, it's baseball night in America as Matt Olson and the Braves take on Alex Bregman and producer Pam's Red Sox, or the Twins battle the Brewers. Check local listings for the game in your area. Saturday at 7 Eastern.
Egyébként ha eredmény, ugye... meg nem díjazon, hanem ugye unblock az évben. Az év újonc, hogy az eredmény alapján dől el, nem közönség, nem feltétlenül közönség szavazásra, és az újoncok közül Christian Rasmussennek az a 12. helye egyébként, az nagyon jó, azt gondolom. Főleg úgy, hogy tudjuk, hogy milyen volt a tavalyi verseny, nagyon sok esővel, hosszabb és sok sárga zászlókkal, és az képest ez a 12. hely újoncként nem rossz. Nyilván volt, aki megnyerte újonc évében, de szerintem akkor sem rossz Christian Rasmussentől, és eredmény alapján ő lett volna egyébként a tavalyi Indy 500-nak.
Right now, if you're an engineer, that's the stress I'm feeling right now. All Elio can do is say, this is what I'm feeling. And all the guys with the laptops on the timing stand, staring at the math, thinking and speculating, because it's not as if you type Elio's comment into your laptop and AI tells you, here's the change.
És ők négyen érték el eddig a 4 Indy 500 bajnoki címet, és most már az elmúlt 3 évre, és ez lesz majd a 4. ugye a legutolsó 2021-es győzelme óta. Julio Castro Nevez próbálja megszerezni már a többiket, hogy abszolút egy uralkodó legyen e téren.
Big swings, you have to be methodical because it's that dangerous out there.
Marco Andretti, I think
Marco Andretti is veterán, de ő messze nem olyan sikeres.
And often Hinch and Townsend will joke that no one's better about finding a draft and putting a big lap down than Marco Andretti. He's been able to do that, but he hasn't done that so far this week, and there might be a reason. He's not on full power. So we were talking about many of the, actually all of the Hondas that are full season programs are going to make an engine change before qualifying. That is different than the normal protocol. But if a one-off team, meaning this is the only race that you run, it's the engine you get for the entire month. So Marco Andretti is on his qualifying and his race engine, so to make sure it lasts, it is essentially turned down. It is detuned, so he's not at 100% power. So he knows that. They've done nothing but work on race running. He will get it turned up. Everyone gets more power tomorrow, but he will be on equal footing as the other Hondas, and then we'll get a really good sense of what his pace is. He says the car feels okay, and he's optimistic he can make something out of this return.
Yeah, it can be frustrating as a driver when you know you're running around with a slightly detuned engine, but at the same time, it's necessary to make sure you've got all the best everything behind you when it comes to qualifying, and most importantly, when it comes to the race.
The frustrating part, I've been in this exact situation. I did 10 Indy 500s, always as a one-off, are the other full-time cars getting a different, better spec, or are they just getting freshies of the same spec?
I think he's probably already on whatever spec all the Honda drivers are switching to, I would assume, but I don't obviously know that.
Like I said, been in the situation, and it was
unfortunately
not
right.
It was a different spec that at the last second, you know, and the HPD guys in Santa Clarita, they find something, rush to get it together, and I get it, you got to focus on your full-time guys, but if you're a part-timer on the short end of the stick, it adds to the angst.
On board with Lundgaard in the Mission Foods McLaren, had a great chat with him this morning. He says he's just changing very small things on the car, and he understands how some drivers, when we get into this week, can really flip between big swings and changes. He says, I'm just making tiny incremental changes here and there. I don't want to do much. He said, to be completely honest with you, I'm so happy with the car, and the car that I arrived with here on Tuesday. I may even qualify the car exactly as I had it on Tuesday.
Nothing wrong with that.
This is one of the things that I love about having 40 hours of practice. You show up with a setup that's been optimized in simulation, that is everybody's best theory as to what the car is going to want to be. You go out, you run it day one, you start tweaking it, and you end up going in this complete vicious circle of changing settings on the car, chasing imbalances, and you end up right back where you started on Tuesday by the time you get to Friday or even carb day next week. So I actually love the fact that this team with this driver, who again has only ever done this race with one team and has had a lot of struggles here with that team, now with this new group, look, we've got a good base setup. We know that. Award's been in the battle for the win the last 3 years. Let's just make small changes for environmental factors, for conditions. Let's not throw setup wholesale changes at it like you see and hear up and down pit lane all week long. This might be arguably the most prepared driver come next Sunday because he's just been driving roughly the same car with only minor changes. And that kind of repetition with the same car, that familiarity with the setup can be so comforting.
Now we've not seen the number 3 out on track yet. Georgia can tell us why.
Yeah, and as we keep tabs on Team Penske, Joseph Newgarden and leading right now. Will Power down the 27th position. We have not seen the Thirsty 3 Scott McLaughlin out on track, but nothing to worry about. We just checked in with Kyle Moyer. They just said they were letting some other people get some running in, making some final tweaks and adjustments, some once-overs, and the Thirsty 3s will be out shortly.
Nyilván nehéz volt például megkülönböztetni őket.
Who else haven't we seen? Malukas and a 34th.
Marcus Ericsson.
Man, I love this driver's eye camera. On board with Marcus Ericsson right now. Legra sponsorship on that car this month. And you just see all that information on the dash that the drivers are monitoring. Here in the middle there, 5th, you see the predicted speed up at the top, his last lap speed. That was a weight jacker adjustment with his right thumb. That's moving weight across the front axle onto the right front tire. That's to try to slow the entry down, take a little bit of front grip out of the car. So Marcus not totally comfortable with the back end of that race car as you hear him crack off the throttle. You see that predictive number, that speed, that top speed is falling as he's going slower. So all sorts of good information. State of charge of the hybrid system, your bar positions, your engine maps, all the different settings that you have to monitor and adjust on the fly.
It's Kyle Larson, the other driver that we didn't have on track. Of course, TK doing the refresher.
Yeah, I did that this morning, 10 till 12. I believe he passed. He's pretty good around here, so TK. So then we'll just be making some changes on that car to get it back to Kyle Larson's liking. There it is in the garage. It's being fitted out for the NASCAR Cup Series Championship meet.
Egyébként magára a hétvégére, illetve ugye unblock az Indy 500-ra erre nagyjából 2 hetes felvezetésre, és aztán maga a hab a torta tetején, de azon még ugye a cseresznyére rajta maga a verseny. Két oldalról előzték a két McLaren, előzte meg a két McLaren Will Power-t. Szóval erre nagyjából 2 hétre ugye a csapatok nyilván nem egy autóval állnak ki. Azért ha az megsérül, az elég sokat kell például javítani rajta. Nyilván minél jobb próbálnak vigyázni arra, mert arra az egy autó, ami már ugye azt tökéletesítik minden nap, beteszik a garázsba, kamionba, bárhova, és utána azt tökéletesítik a következő nap, az utáni nap, stb. És nyilván nem lenne jó például, hogyha miközben egyébként lefagyott a kép, úgyhogy erre mindjárt rá is nézek. De lehet, hogy egy másodperc is visszajövünk. Szóval reklámozzák a hétvégi NASCAR All-Star versenyt, ahogy az elmúlt 2 napon is.
In just a moment.
3 cars in line until they're not. I love this. 3 wide into turn 1 award using the double draft on Lundgaard, his teammate, and the car in front manages to get a twofer. 2 and 1 from the outside. You see that. You really do have that extra head of steam with a double draft. There's Will Power stuck in the middle. Driver in the middle usually has to be the one to dump out. Will doing, understanding that in practice it's not worth anything. We talked about the difference between passing and practice. That's not what it looks like on race day. It'll be fiercely contested and can oftentimes end in tears and a shower of parts down in turn 1 as everybody wants to own the apex there.
Interesting to note the setup change differences between Award's car and Lundgaard's car. Lundgaard's still running that mini gurney on his rear wing. Award has done away with that entirely. Could partially
Sréhen, vagy hát nyilván nem frontálisan, de általában Sréhen szoktak a falba ütközni, vele hamarabb elér.
For race day is how much downforce are you going to start the race with? So much is going to depend on both weather conditions and how you think you're handling. As I look to the forecast long range for Indy, only goes to Saturday right now on my phone, but showing perfect, James, sunny skies, 70 degrees on Saturday, but we'll have to see what race day really looks like as we get closer.
And you can achieve that downforce in different ways. You can have that wicker and a slightly lower wing angle, or you can remove the wicker and increase the wing angle. Different efficiencies tied to that. As we see the Prema machine of Callum Ilott out there. These guys getting those laps in now, so important. After a rough first day, they've really bounced back nicely. Callum Ilott, Robert Schwartzman. Schwartzman actually quite high on the no-toe list as well. So
the pace of these Prema cars seems pretty encouraging early on.
Láttam
Both of
szerint
them yesterday,
egyébként
6th for
Kyle
Schwartzman, 7th
elméletileg
for Ivan on the no-toe
bár
chart.
nem a boxban írja őt. A számítógép, de ezt majd megnézzük.
It's a little awkward putting Dennis Reinbold on the spot like I did, but you have to start to think, okay, if Prema looks pretty good, who's in your last row shootout? It's going to be 4 cars.
It's
going to be 4 cars from good teams because they're all good teams. Because they're all good teams. There's just no one that's really struggling so obviously right now with Prema getting their cars dialed in. And look, as he mentioned, all it takes is a mistimed upshift or downshift, a bar not getting adjusted in time, a weight jack or fast jacker mistake. We've seen engine issues, you know, where we get the overboost penalties. Like, a gust of wind can make the difference.
And think about the mistakes we've seen in the last couple of years as the fast jacker has come into the sport for everybody. And now you add hybrid into the mix, and then wind like we haven't seen for many years as well. I think you're absolutely right. Making it is maybe not going to be about pure car speed, one team to the next. I think it's going to be about minimizing mistakes.
Yeah, these cars are going to be on the edge, not just on the limit, but on the edge. And as you guys were saying, with the way this circuit is constructed, by the way the grandstands are, you come out from behind the grandstand and there's a sudden gust of wind, and that's a 30-mile-an-hour wind. That gets very, very dicey. And as a result, I've spoken to a bunch of drivers in the garage area, and there's kind of 2 prevailing approaches to qualifying. One is we have all these tools, the fast jacker, the weight jacking, the bars, the hybrid. There's ways to optimize it all for lap to lap, sometimes end of the track to end of the track, making multiple adjustments per lap to find the absolute maximum speed. But it takes a ton of mental capacity, and if anything in that procedure, any step gets missed, it can have very bad consequences, but they want to maximize the speed. The other camp is keep it simple, stupid. I don't want to get myself caught out by trying to find that last 100th of a mile an hour and cost myself a mile and a half in a mistake. So some drivers kind of focusing on my gear pattern, the simple tools that I've got in the weight jacker and the bars, and I'll leave the rest of it for someone else to worry about.
Sounds like gambling.
Very much so.
What kind of risk do you want to take? Because we watched Devlin DiFrancesco. Not sure if this is a qual sim that he's on. This car I'm going to start referring to as the Astro Pop. I know they got a H coin on the side, but this does look like a tasty cold treat at a water park on a hot summer day. Hitch took about, might lose a mile and a half.
Might lose the car if there is a big gust of wind, if there's too much in the front of their mind and they lose it coming through. Thankfully we've not seen anything as of yet as we see the speed start to go up.
Certainly saw one at the open test with Takuma Sato.
Hát azt gondoltam első körben, hogy hát amúgy végignyomhatjuk akár, nyilván hosszabb kisebb megszakításokkal, de amúgy végignyomhatjuk azt a 6 órát, ugye 6 órás az edzés, minden nap. De aztán úgy voltam vele, hogy hát azért mégiscsak szombaton is mivel ki kell menni, hát így kell menni. De úgyhogy úgy döntöttem, hogy végül akkor nem. Szombaton egyébként már maga az időmérő lesz, ugye az első napja, 13. helytől egészen
I saw a picture on Twitter that maybe they were wrapping the backup car. I haven't looked into it this morning. I'm not sure if anyone in pit lanes had a chance to swing by there and ask what's happening down there in the Rahal camp, but just the body language and the language itself of Graham Rahal yesterday, not ideal, just as this wasn't back in the test in April. Takuma Sato, fastest car on track, 1 lap in the wall the next.
2:32 average he was doing because they had turned the boost up on the second day of testing. You can see Sato assisted by the AMR safety team, but significant impact. 4th car for Rahal, Letterman, Lanigan, teammates here to this guy, Devlin DiFrancesco. Not sure if he is on a qual sim now. Firestone data that we have in the booth shows 5 laps on these tires as it continues to circulate. So this might be more of a race run comparison. His last lap, 2:03. So let's head back down to pit lane with Georgia.
Will Power made a few laps today. It sounds like the car going back to make some setup changes and maybe some qualifying sims a little later today.
Yeah, definitely. Just a couple of
Szóval
slow race runs.
beállítást változtatok, és a kvalifikációra próbáltok majd későbbiekben?
Ready for tomorrow, basically, but do some runs today on quali trim.
Happy with your car?
Happy with the car? Yeah, I mean, I am.
Boldog vagy az autóval? Igen, boldog vagyok.
Difficult to pass, but it has been, more comfortable than I've felt for a while, so not bad.
Thanks, Will.
So, if you're a driver in this field struggling with the balance of your race car and you're sitting back in Gasoline Alley watching that interview, you're like throwing up your hands like, yeah, oh my God, what do you mean it's comfortable? Like what are we missing here? Because the Penske boys just seem to be able to rip around with ease.
And you're an hour into practice on day 3, and you're sending the car back to prep it for tomorrow. That's daunting for the guys who are trying for your Ferrucci's, for your RRLs. Take a look at Jack Harvey and some radio.
You can definitely feel the wind. Kind of makes it hard to know if it was the change or just the wind.
Vivek Hamilton a stratégiája és Aaron Nelson.
Yeah, and we can see from the windsock on top of the pylon definitely blowing a lot more than what we saw yesterday. About an 8 mile an hour to 10 mile an hour wind right now. Headwind directly turning into turn 1. That's right down the front straight.
Fascinatingly, mate. Talking to some of the drivers this morning.
Nyugarden vezet 226,632 mérföld/órával. Az én egyébként egészen jelentős. Ez látszódik is a bejövő képeken a zászlókról. Miközben a kintiek is elmentek, ahogy hallottam reklámozni. 4 óra 57 perc 23, nagyjából 20 másodperc van hátra, mondjuk így. Mára viszont köszönöm szépen a figyelmet, viszontlátásra, viszonthallásra. Sziasztok!